Cool. So I wanted to do an intro on UIKit. So once you decide that you want to start building an iOS app, you got to know your knowledge about Swift, but then you have to learn a little bit about how things are presented on screen. And so that's where UIKit comes in. UIKit is Apple's framework for kind of presenting what are called views on screen. So the building block of anything that is on your iPhone, your iPad, is the UI view class. Anything that's presented on there is of a subclass of UI view. And there are a bunch. There's an image view, which holds any pictures that you grab locally or from the web. There's a switch, which is just a toggle that you might see in the settings app. A label, any text that's non-user editable is right in there. A text view, this is for a bunch of lines of text, whether they're user interactable or not. A button, and all of these, a table view is kind of like the phone app where you have a list of phone numbers. All of these are just subclasses of UI view, and they can go inside of the root view that's on screen at any given time. And so these are defined just like was in Michael's presentation as just normal classes. We can add a label and change what's inside of the label, all inside of a UI view class, and we can do the same thing with buttons. And what I wanted to kind of show is a little bit about how that all gets set up in code. So the kind of structure of how we put this inside of our app is we have a couple different types of classes. So we just covered the bottom right, which is the view layer. We have a kind of container class called a view controller, and that holds all of our code for handling interactions between our data, like if we have something in a database or in RAM, and presenting it on screen. And then the model is that data layer. And so what ends up happening is that we do end up having a lot of code in our view controller that handles how we present things on screen and how we kind of push model data back to the view, or if the user interacts, how we put view data back into the model. So what that kind of looks like is like this. We have a UI view controller that kind of wraps around our UI view. On screen, though, all that we kind of see are UI view subclasses. So just some code to kind of put the rubber to the road. So we might have a my view controller class, and that inherits from that subclass UI view controller. And there are a couple of different lifecycle methods that Apple will call on our view controllers. That's all through UIKit. And here's just some code to kind of create a view. We can change some of its properties. In this case, it's background color. We can add some other views like a label. There's some ways to position views on screen, and there are a couple different ways. This is a kind of simple way to do it, where you just pass X, Y, width, and height. And we can change some other properties, and then we hit a very important method, which is add subview. So any view can act as a container for another view, and we can add and compose subviews like that. So what we end up getting is a view that might look like this, right, on our phone. And we could change the position there so that Hello World shows up somewhere else. But yeah, so then we can do some more, like add a button right down there in between where we added the label. And we can set its positioning as well and set properties on it. And those are some functions like set title color and title. And then we get a button right there. And then the last little bit here that I wanted to show was kind of how we interact with our UI. So we can add a function at the bottom there, button was pressed, that triggers whenever we tap one of our buttons. And the last line there, I should have put line numbers on here, of where we kind of set up our button is button add target. Another kind of core piece of UIKit is this idea of connecting functions with interactions on screen. So when we touch up inside, that's that end of that function, a specific method will get called. And there's a little bit of kind of legacy stuff here in terms of this at objc and the hashtag selector that I'm not going to go into right now. But there's code that it's inside of UIKit that allows us to kind of connect functions with buttons. And so what we might get is when we press that button, it changes from Hello World to Hello Amherst. So yeah, so that's kind of like a brief overview of all the different ways that we can kind of set up UI on screen. And like I said, there's more stuff to kind of explore about how to position views in relation to other views. Those are called constraints. There's also different ways that we can kind of connect our database to our views, and that uses other frameworks that you could get into called reactive programming frameworks, or frameworks that you build yourself. But this was just to serve as kind of a little bit of an overview of what UIKit is and kind of how we normally will interact with it. So all of this stuff is also up on GitHub, and I'll post this inside of the Slack group so that anybody can access it. So yeah.